大家好, I'm Nathan Rich, aka 火锅大王. One thing that's been coming up a lot recently is this concept of anti-Semitism. It seems like everywhere I look online, people are calling out Israel for their alleged war crimes and so-called genocide. And that's anti-Semitic. Or is it? Many of you may not know this yet, but ethnically speaking, the largest portion of my blood is Ashkenazi Jew, at around half. Since my mother was that side, and my family, before mentally succumbing to a UFO cult called Scientology, were all culturally Jewish, I'm not just physically part Jew, I'm also considered Jewish in the racial sense. I even celebrated Jewish traditions as a youngster where they didn't conflict with the UFO cult. So as a half-Jew, or a Hugh, if you will, what exactly is my take on Israel? I'm often asked that question. But the answer really doesn't have to do with my ethnicity, and nor should your answer to the same question. All we really need to do to come up with a valid perspective on Israel is to be consistent in how we view nations in this complicated world. But isn't it anti-Semitic to be against Israel? Let's take a look. Israel is a country. We know it's a country because it's a political state which has de jure sovereignty. De jure sovereignty for a political state comes from official recognition by other countries. It doesn't come from unofficial recognition. It doesn't come from trade agreements, or from a UN observer status, or from other countries' government officials visiting that state. It comes, and only comes from, official public declarations of recognition that the state is a sovereign nation or country. Note that it also doesn't come from the state being founded on sound principles, or by it being on good moral standing. Only official recognition is what determines if a state gains the label country. That is where de jure, or legal status of the country, comes from. We can see by this definition that Palestine is also a country. We can see that China is a country. We can see that Hong Kong is not a country, because while it is a political state, and it does have its own passport and top-level domain name and so on and so forth, it is still not a country because it doesn't have recognition by the overwhelming majority of recognized countries. This is also how we know that Taiwan is not a country. Furthermore, de jure sovereignty via recognition is also how we determine which government is the valid legal government for a recognized country. And again, it has nothing to do with liking the government or anything else like that. It's solely based on official international acceptance. Now, if you're thinking that there's a chicken and egg issue here, like how could a country exist if the only way for it to be your country is to be recognized by other countries? I mean, how did they become countries in the first place? Well, then you're partially right. It is a chicken and egg issue. The part you're probably forgetting to consider here, though, is that there's no actual problem with chickens and eggs. Whether an ancient bird was a chicken at any point is merely a naming convention. The status of being a chicken is just a name. The same goes for an egg. Evolution didn't just suddenly produce a chicken, nor an egg. Nor, of course, was a chicken the first bird with an egg. But anyway, much in the same way, the definition of what a country is has evolved. In ancient times, a country was essentially just what we would call a state today. In fact, read any very old books and you'll find the word country often refers to what we would probably just call a province today. Later, as the world became more connected, norms were established, and sometime after the uncontested prominence of the UN, the definition of country solidified. That is why what we called a country in 1915, let's say, would not necessarily be called a country today, and vice versa. Today, a chicken is a specific kind of bird that we all call a chicken. Today, a country is a specific kind of state that we all call a country. That's reality. Palestine is a country, Israel is a country, and being countries, these states have rights and obligations which are in fact only externally enforceable by international pressure. Being countries, both have the right to exist, and they have the right to their own destinies. They have the right to defend themselves. Israel supporters cite the attack by Hamas in October of 2023 as their 9/11 and invoke a right to self-defense as justifications for the waging of war against Hamas. They will often remind us Americans that we used 9/11 to do much of the same waging of war. Unfortunately, there are several inconsistencies with this line of logic. And as I reveal them, I want us all to keep something in mind. I do not especially care about Israel or Palestine. I don't think I would enjoy either place, nor do I like to sit around and think about their issues. I'm saying I don't get emotional about this issue. I have no real dog in the fight, so to speak. And it's becoming painfully obvious to me that anyone accused of defending Palestine seems to get backed into a corner of supporting Hamas or supporting specific actions on either side. Well, I don't support anything. I view things from a historian point of view. And that's why I can say the following sentence. When a group of people invade a country, especially when they occupy that country for extended periods of time, it has always been the case that horrible crimes are committed by the local populace in retaliation to that occupation. There are no examples of forcible occupation of a country which did not result in rebellions, crimes, murders, or worse being committed by the local populace. It doesn't exist. If you think that you're morally superior to any country anywhere which is under forced occupation because you believe that your people would never commit crimes against the occupiers, it's because you haven't studied or didn't understand history. That's just a fact. If you think that anything I just said is a justification of those crimes, it's because you aren't being honest. And it could be because that there's so many bad faith actors in the political content world these days, so perhaps it's understandable. But I mean exactly what I said and nothing more. It's a common and possibly even foregone conclusion that forced military occupation of a country will result in, among many other things, violent, abhorrent acts by the local populace against the occupiers. So what caused the attack in October of 2023? Random violent strangers doing something crazy? No, it was people in an occupied country committing crimes against their occupiers. Makes perfect sense in the context of historical events, actually. Nothing whatsoever surprising about it. A lot of you out there, no doubt, believe Israel has been illegally occupying Palestine since its formation. Like I said though, that is now mostly irrelevant because Israel has gained status as a country. That's geopolitics. However, being a country does not give Israel nor Palestine the right to encroach or continue to encroach on each other's territory. Take a look at a map of Israel sometime. Anything which is not internationally recognized as its official borders have resulted from illegal military occupation. In other words, over time, even if we ignore Israel's founding, it has still been illegally occupying Palestine and expanding its occupation. Let us not forget that labels, while useful, can also cloud issues. We don't need to declare, accept, or deny any genocide in Palestine to make our point here. We don't. Forget about that for the time being, and let's all dramatically strawman our own argument. Israel is only acting militarily with the utmost discretion. It's trying desperately to avoid any civilian casualties. On the rare occasion that an ordinance happens to accidentally harm a non-combatant, Israel is quick to jump in and help in every way possible. Israel's culture is morally right, and they are religiously righteous. Palestinians are all backwards and bad people. Every Palestinian is exactly the same as every Hamas member, and Israel has been and continues to only act in self-defense. Let's make these obviously ridiculous assumptions in an attempt to steelman Israel's position and strawman our own criticisms. But you see, none of these invented facts change the situation, nor indeed the prescribed solution. Even in this dramatic retelling of events, Israel still wouldn't have the right to occupy portions of Palestine, nor to expand its occupation. Even if Israel were acting 100% in self-defense, only fighting back in equal proportions to attacks on it, that would still not be legal, and it would not be moral, nor would it be accepted by rational thinkers across the world, especially those concerned about a repeat of the great wars of the past. And if you're still having a hard time understanding just how obvious this is, all you need to do is imagine the same thing happening to you. I'm from the US, so I'll use that as an example. In 1948, China installed a state inside what used to be Texas, which was to serve as a safe haven for ethnically Hakka Chinese. After many dramatic and traumatic events, eventually that state became a country. There's no more Texas. It's a new country called Hakka-Real. When Americans, who have for generations fought the country and died for their cause, continue to do so, Hakka-Real expands further into the US. New Mexico does not exist anymore. Now, though no one on the world stage views it as legal, it has become de facto part of Hakka-Real. So too has Tennessee. So what would Americans do in this case? Would they commit crimes? Yeah, that's what I thought. Suddenly the issue is so crystal clear, isn't it? And about pointing out that America did similar things after 9/11, first of all, that's not a justification. That's just whataboutism. And second of all, believe it or not, I was against those crimes too. It's called consistency. Maybe give it a try. And by the way, you can't just declare war on a group. The war on drugs, the war on terrorism, the war on Hamas, those aren't wars. Wars are between states. Those are just phrases that use the word war, so actual war declarations aren't used. It's just slippery political doublespeak. The actual international norm, and probably moral solution to Israel's war against peace in the Middle East, is very, very simple, though not easy. Israel should fully retreat to the internationally recognized borders and appeal to the international community for a peacekeeping force to absolutely and heavy-handedly enforce a demilitarized zone. Any further attacks by Israel should be viewed as invitation for military occupation or even regime change at the heads of the peacekeeping forces. Any further attacks by Palestine should be viewed in the same light. Doubters out there will scoff about this and forecast all about the future, but it's the actual valid next step. If either side continues the conflict after international peacekeeping efforts established at DMZ, then that's on them. But no matter what you say, simply allowing one side to take over the other one in the most brutal fashion possible is not the accepted civilized next step. And that becomes very clear when you view things in the context of every other country in the post-World War II era. So, is it anti-Semitic to be opposed to what Israel's doing in Palestine? No. It's simply stating a disagreement with the blatant violations of international laws. And again, we don't even need to label this or that as a massacre or genocide to come to this position. All we need to do is be consistent with what a country is and what rights and responsibilities come with that label. So in closing, is it anti-Semitic to be against what Israel's doing? Not at all. It's not even anti-Semitic to be against Israel's recognition as a country. But that doesn't mean that there's no limits. I mean, there's certainly attitudes and comments which are anti-Semitic. But being against one country illegally militarily occupying another country doesn't count as anti-Semitism. And that's pretty much the end of that accusation. But what do you know? I'm just a shifty-eyed Jew. What, I can't say Jew? Can't even say shifty-eyed Jew? That's what my wife calls me sometimes, a shifty-eyed Jew. Okay, what about shady Jew? No? Okay, what about a money-hungry Yid? Ah, you don't know Yid, huh? Okay, all right. How about, what do you call free pork? A Jew dilemma. Seriously, how do you know that joke but you don't know Yid? Get those censorship lists updated. Heeb? Oh, that one's fine. Jaime? You don't know anything. Anyway, from one shifty-eyed jubilant man. Ah! I gotcha. I said jubilant man. From one shifty-eyed, jubilant man's perspective, don't be an anti-Semite, but do oppose the illegal occupation of Palestine without necessarily supporting any actions taken on either side. It's really that easy to be on the right side of history. Well, I'm off to go eat some matzah and gefilte fish, which is totally delicious. You gotta try some for yourself, and please film your reaction. You're gonna love it. Until next time, I'm Nathan Rich. Thanks everybody. L'chaim!